everybody. I'm Blinn.
I'm Michael.
This is Woods and Bates, Legally Speaking. We're going to talk today about, what are we going to talk about today?
I'd say helping us help you. One thing that we've talked about is getting some information from clients before the initial meetings, and it tends to make the meetings go a lot smoother. It's more useful time for you and I, and it's a benefit to the clients too. So I think we're going to talk about, for some different cases, what documents for sure we will need at the outset.
I think a lot of that is going to be relatively standard throughout. We're going to need to know who the client is and what their address, contact information is. Anybody else that's involved, we're going to need the same thing, how to get in touch with them, how to send them documents, things like that. And those are all questions that I routinely ask, right away in the appointment. And I think we're doing some things to try to get some forms put together so people can provide that information ahead of time. But, compiling all that information, and, when I talk to people, I say, bring whatever you have. We're document rich around here.
Yeah.
We like paper. So if it's a real estate transaction, if there's deeds or title commitments or death certificates, if people have passed away, things like that, that's usually what I'll need to get things going. What if somebody's coming in to see you on a case that's already going? What do you need?
Usually we like to look at the whole case file, that anything that's ever been pled in the court, any notice, any type of affidavit that's been made part of that court record, we like to see those. Now, there is a way that we can access them. We can request the circuit clerk to send us those, but it's a copying fee for us, and we have to pass that on to the client. So if those documents can be brought in and we can review and just kind of get an understanding of what's, in my practice, it's typically once an order is entered in a custody case, more or less, there's always a way to come back in and try to make a modification. So my step one is always, what's the current order? What are you guys operating under? If you're doing something different from that current order, try to map it out for me so that I can understand what the actual verbal agreement is. But if it's something that's hotly contested and we're right in the middle of a case, first of all, we don't like typically to take on those types of cases because it's a scramble to get everything ready. But we do.
You don't like that?
We do that sometimes. I don't like that. We do that sometimes. But in those situations, we like to know what's next, what's on the calendar, what do we need to start preparing for. So if you can bring those documents in with some dates from the outset, it helps us really get caught up to speed a lot quicker than if we just came in and tried to ask for that information from you in person.
I think one of the other things that's probably pretty uniform across the board is whether it's an estate case or estate planning or a divorce case. We're going to need information about what are the assets that are there, whether that be the assets of the client in the case of a divorce case or a estate planning case, or what are the assets of the deceased. What do we need to deal with? What's there to pay bills? What's there that's ultimately going to get distributed, whether that be account statements or bank statements, vehicle titles, things like that all become important. And hopefully in the event of family member passing away, it was a client of ours that we told, you need to put all this stuff together, put it all in one place, or tell somebody where it all is, and you can just bring that book of documents in and we'll have what we need. But that's not always the case. So what would your advice be if you didn't know where some of that was? Where would you start?
Start first, if mom or dad or your relative has a safe at home, hopefully you know where the combination is or have a key to that safe. Usually whenever you go through somebody's personal belongings after they pass away, look for an envelope with a safety deposit box key. If you are still at a dead end from there, sometimes different financial institutes will at least tell you if that person had an account there. They may not tell you who the beneficiary was or what the account value was, but most of the time they'll give you a yes or no. And at that point, we, after talking to somebody in our office, we can determine whether we need to petition and open up an estate to get you certified letters of office, so that then that institution will have to talk to you. Other routes around it, sometimes a small estate affidavit will work to just get information, but again, you would have to know what they own for that document to essentially work the way that it needs to. So, top drawer at mom and dad's house, I don't know where people stash things away, safe documents, but the first place to start is a safe or a safe deposit box.
It's like a modern day treasure hunt. A couple of the things that I found to be helpful in that case are prior year's income tax returns, if there are any, because that's going to show you where income's coming from. So you're going to know where to look, at least. If there's a retirement account that's paying money, you're going to be reporting that income type thing. Also, the mail, assuming that the mail gets delivered, which is a big assumption these days, but it's usually a treasure trove of information. If you're getting mailed statements still, if people are getting tax forms, if it's that time of the year, those things can all be helpful too, to try to figure out what we're dealing with.
And I think we've talked about it in previous videos too. One of our common practices now with estate planning is giving access to electronic accounts. I mean, a lot of that information is going to be available just online, and that's going to be a good step too, if again these institutions will work with the people that are wrapping up the estate. So whenever we look at it, whether it's a divorce case, administration of an estate, really, as Blinn mentioned, you really want to look at what does the estate own. You have the marital estate, or you have the decedent's estate, and then you look at what the law says on how you're supposed to divide that up. And really, at the outset, we need to know what is in that estate. Tax returns, W-2s, pay information. Blinn mentioned retirement accounts. A lot of people in this area are state employees. They have a pension from the state of Illinois. Sometimes those terminate at the individual's death. Sometimes there's a survivor annuity as well. So just knowing where mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa receives their income is going to be a big step.
I think so. And there's ways to find that information if we can. Just example that comes to mind is, we know there's a vehicle there, but we don't know where the title is. Maybe we have to get a lost title, or we have to get a new title issued. There's steps that you can take to do those things, but hopefully, if people are planning appropriately, there's a lot of information that's already put together for us, and has everything that somebody's going to need, whether that be physical documents or account passwords and things like that, so that somebody is having less trouble trying to find what they need. Man,
yeah,
got it out.
Get tongue tied. It's like what my daughter had. So, and I don't know if it was a Super Bowl commercial or just something I saw recently on TV, but it's like one of those LifeLock type companies about your digital footprint. It says the average person has over 100 online accounts, and so imagine somebody trying to figure out where somebody banks, where somebody uses their investments. Having that list of passwords and account information is going to really help your loved ones whenever they're trying to figure out what you have. So
there's a lot of them. Google told me the other day that it didn't like 52 of my passwords, which I'm surprised I have 52 passwords, but Google doesn't like them. So I guess I've got to change them. Nightmare. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens this March with basketball. I guess the strategy is to just not play for several weeks, and then you just move up the standings like Michigan does.
Yeah, that's the way. You just have the positive test, get a little reprieve, and come back fresh in March.
Think they're going to play conference tournaments this year?
Oh, I would think they would want to, because last year, and I think it was after day 1 or 2 of the Big Ten conference tournament, they had to shut down. I don't think those big conferences can go without that revenue source again this year. Definitely the NCAA can't. They're already planning the bubble concept, so I think the conferences are going to follow suit.
Always comes down to the money, doesn't it?
Yep, follow the money.
It'll be interesting. But thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next time.
Thank you.